Today's video, we're going to talk about LinkedIn sponsored messages. You can use them to make a ton of money for your business, whether you're even talking about B2B, B2C businesses, does not matter. Why? Because you can get in front of the exact buyer you want this way. You're not simply trying to run the ad, hopefully to catch their attention. You're communicating value directly to the person that you want. Of course, sometimes they will not respond because they don't want to and or they can see that it's a sponsored message, but sending a message to your clients or prospective customers inbox on LinkedIn will typically get it seen as long as they're not swamped by tons of other messages already, which could happen. It's simply going to be down to whether or not your message is valuable to them or not. Given that if you run a regular newsfeed ad, they may not even see that, because how many people on LinkedIn actually go and they browse the feed? They're not going to LinkedIn most of the time to spend time on LinkedIn. Now, lower level employees may do this more. Typical CEOs, executives, stuff like that, which most of you guys are going after, do not spend time on LinkedIn like that. They're on LinkedIn so people can contact them and they can contact other people. Especially with you guys marketing in those kind of circumstances, you want to go with the LinkedIn sponsored message campaigns because that's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. And I'm going to prove that with the case studies where I've shared the results on 4 different campaigns here and the results we got thereof, not only in terms of conversions, cost per opportunity, and closing rates on the leads that we got, as well as the industries, of course, and the average lifetime value of a client. So you can have a direct understanding of how profitable these campaigns can be if you do it the way that I talk about on this particular video, in terms of the actual strategy we use to consistently get results on the platform via the LinkedIn sponsored campaigns or sponsored message campaigns in themselves. I will go into detail on exactly how to do this for yourself and then the results thereof. If you stay to the end of the video, I'll have those results for you. Here's specifically what you want to do a LinkedIn sponsored message campaign, which again gets you into the inbox of your prospective customers or clients, and of which looks pretty much just like a regular in-mail that you would send to a first degree connection. You're getting to be able to send it to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth degree connections as well. And then really just it comes down to, are you going to say something compelling enough that's going to get the user to act or not? And if your product or service is good, the message and template I'm going to give you here will get response. It's just a matter of how much is it going to get. Here's the process. What I'm going to go through here initially may seem unnecessary and you might get excited so much that you just skip over some of these steps, but I'm promising you, if you skip the steps, you're not going to get the results that I'm talking about here most of the time. So don't skip any steps. Step 1 though is find your firmographics that it match up with your customer or prospective buyer. Actually, if you have clients or customers already, you're already one step ahead of everybody else that's going to do this. You take your customer list and you take it to a data broker or data expansion or data enrichment company. You literally take your email address list, your phone number list, you provide it to these data enrichment companies, and they'll tell you all the traits that match up with your customers that you've had in the past. Specifically, what traits they have, what size of companies they work for, what's the job title, the age, the gender, and then other information of what kind of hobbies the person has, what kind of things they buy. All these, there's tens of thousands of data points that they compare your customer list and then give you a list back of all these individual traits that make them unique. This is very important when it comes to B2B marketing because the job title, the company size, and the industry type is 80% of your results, and getting that drilled in appropriately. It's just how it is. Not only that, but you also have to be able to drill down your message and not just have one message for everybody. I'm going to talk about here in a minute. With that said, there are individual places that you could take your customer list to if you don't have this information already, this so-called buyer persona. One of them is going to be Axicom is one. The other company is named Claritas. You can Google search them, and then they're going to give you all this data. Yes, again, like I said before, it may seem overkill or not necessary to do this. Your results and the results what you're going to get here is really make or break based upon the research and planning you did here. Did you get it drilled down so that of the 100 million people on LinkedIn that you could target, you've got to drill down to the 10,000 people that would actually be profitable for you to target itself. And that's really what it comes down to. Or maybe a bit more. Even if it is 50,000, you want to still, like I said, you're going to drill this down to individual segments and then different messages for different segments, like I'm going to talk about here. But you get enough people that aren't profitable into the mix, you're not going to be profitable at all. This works, by the way, as good or better than email and direct mail campaigns. At our firm, we use direct mail, email to reach out to prospective companies that we know we can help, that we've helped similar companies like them already, and talk to them about the results that we've got, which will get them to jump on board too, which is what this method revolves around primarily, as I'm going to talk about. But I can tell you from experience, I've also run LinkedIn sponsored message campaigns, and the results you're going to get is similar. If you don't want to run email and direct mail campaigns, you can start out with a LinkedIn sponsored message campaign and get basically the same results. Sometimes better, sometimes not. It's basically similar. I recommend still doing all of them. So if you get this to work for yourself, then you do those as well. Essentially, it's the same mechanism. You're just getting in front of somebody. Maybe they don't check their email. Maybe they don't check their physical mail, but they check their LinkedIn inbox because they're a LinkedIn person. You have a chance with somebody you wouldn't have got a chance with otherwise. And some people don't care about LinkedIn, and therefore you also do email and direct mail as well, of which a lot of people neglect direct mail, by the way, and that's a huge mistake because when you're talking about marketing and advertising, when everybody goes one way, you should go the other because this now becomes too expensive. The prices go up and it's not as effective anymore. And this thing over here everybody ignores is now effective. Direct mail, the cost has went up. Yes, it hasn't went down in cost because less people use it. But what happens is the response rate goes up because nobody's using it and they think email is cheaper and they think LinkedIn sponsored messages are cheaper. And because you're the one doing it in your industry, you're the one letter they got that month, and they're going to pay attention to it and respond at 20 times the rate as an email or greater, which is literally what it is. Once you know exactly who to target, you're going to have to find out and offer a pitch for them. Ultimately, with the data that you have, you're going to find out the industries that you should target. It might be tire manufacturers, plumbing supply distributors, whatever. You break this down by industry. Why? Because you're going to have different messages for each. If you want this to really work, you got to go ahead and add this element to your overall LinkedIn sponsored message campaign. And you're going to offer them essentially information that they exactly want to know. Hey, you are plumbing supplies manufacturer. I've worked with 3 plumbing supplies manufacturers and got them XYZ results. Would you like to hear how we got them the results? You have an open-ended question like this. Of course, that gets them to say, yes, I do. And then now you got them. You start the whole process of getting them familiar with your company, so on and so forth. I don't recommend marketing content. What you do want to do, though, is get them to respond so that you can set up a meeting, or like we have done with a lot of clients now, you just have a link for a Calendly and they book a time, and then your salesperson doesn't have to really do anything. They just go to these meetings. For that matter, you'll get less of them if you expect them to book a Calendly. So I recommend only doing that after you're profitable. If your issue is your salesperson's time is stretched thin, you go ahead and use Calendly. So that's one route. The other route, though, that I know is just proven time and time again is the pay you proposal, as I call it. You pay them for their time. Nobody does this. I don't know still why, but ultimately, I've stumbled upon this as somebody else doing it, and then I copied it, and it works extremely well. Essentially, what you do is once you understand that perfect prospect that you need to get in front of, which is why you did your research back here, you just do the simple math in figuring out what you can pay to get somebody into a sales meeting. And then at that point in time, now you also know what you can do to bribe somebody to get them into a sales meeting. Like we had in the outsourced CFO space, we want to have them hire us for outsourced CFO services. We would just simply say, hey, manager, John Smith, whatever, we'll give you a $50 Starbucks gift card if you'll simply take 15 minutes of time so that I can share with you a very exciting opportunity. You just keep it vague. You don't say what the opportunity is because that's not going to help you, because if you say what it is, they're not going to want to be sold to. So they'll be like, maybe it is something like, I really have to know or whatever. And they'll go for it, mainly because they want the card. Once you get them in there, if you have an actual talented salesperson, they're going to be able to take that and run with it. A crappy salesperson isn't going to be able to do anything with those. Trust me, if you get a really good salesperson that has a person that is a home run prospect for your product or service that would for sure work for them, and they get 15 minutes to pique their interest, they're going to make sales, bottom line. And it's not going to be 1 in 100. It's going to be several percentage points of people that you get into a sales meeting is going to close with not even the best of the best salesperson, but somebody that a top 20% salesperson easily. So it ain't going to work with your average guy, but it'll work really well with the top 20 percentile guy. And if you have a crappy sales team, then you go with the similar clients method, because at least at that point in time, the whole fact that you've got proven results in the space and the results themselves that you could share will speak and cover for lack of being able to build rapport and all this other stuff. Of which, by the way, when you contact these people, I gave you a general idea what script you're going to use. The subject line on the sponsored message, the shorter the better. My favorite is interesting info. Why? Because it gets them to open the damn message. Your goal on the subject line is literally just to get them to open the message and or just read what's on there. That's all it is. It's not there to sell anything. It's not there to make them aware of what you're trying to say. Just open it. Same thing goes, by the way, for email marketing. That's all you do. Or you can say, need to know info, or there's some variants that you can test, but that's basically all you do there. Step 3, set up the campaign, of course, your sponsored message campaign. I gave you the script templates to use. Test 3 different scripts. And when I say 3 different scripts, like instead of saying, hey, John, I wanted to tell you because that we got results for other plumbing supplies manufacturers, you do instead, hey, John, other plumbing supply manufacturers are doing XYZ. So it's just a small variation or different way of saying the same thing. But you'll be surprised how much of a lift you could get testing it 3 ways, finding the best way. That'll get you an extra 30% more results. Naturally, you're going to need a lot of messages to get the actual test result. LinkedIn has an A/B test tool used for this, and it may take 5,000 sponsored in messages to have statistically significant results to know where to go with it, or even 10,000. But it's worth at least setting up from the get-go so that if you're not getting the results you quite want later on down the road, you at least have a lever to pull that's going to get you the rest of the way to profitability, instead of waiting forever, assuming you're going to get profitability, and then say, shoot, I'm not profitable, and then have to spend another $20,000 in sponsored messages to get where you can make improvements. That's the final step. Now, the results you're going to get on this is going to vary based upon the opportunity, like how much results you've gotten for other companies if you're going to go with the similar clients method. Of course, how good your salesperson primarily is with the pay-you proposal method. So that will change. Those 2 factors will change your results pretty much more than anything else. That's your main factor, and that's your main lever to pull. If you don't have results, if you don't get the results you're looking for, the ROI that you're looking for, I would go ahead and look at all the individual industries that you're targeting, pick the 20% that got the highest response rate, and just focus on those. You get less results, but at least you're profitable, which is partially why the benefit comes in of doing this, because you can find the industries that are going to work and go with that. And then for, of course, the pay-you proposal, it's, again, finding a better salesperson. The difference between an average sales guy and the top one is going to be the difference between closing 5% and closing 20%. It really is going to make that big of a difference. I've seen it myself. If you're only getting a third of the results that you want ROI-wise, you literally just know that if you, instead of spending $50,000 for a year for that sales guy that got that result for you, spend $150, poach the most expensive guy from your competitor that's out there, and now you're going to have a working campaign and you got leads lined up for them. You can already expect that going in, maybe even test selling it yourself, see that that is the case, and then hire the 150 guy. You get what I'm saying. And there's other ways to make this obviously more profitable. Even on the pay-you proposal, you could just single out certain industries, segment things out. Okay, this industry works, this one doesn't. This title works, the job title works, this one doesn't. And that's the other main way to do it. Also, like age demographics and gender demographics. And if you single all those things out in individual campaigns, then you can run a report after the fact. So if you're iffy about it in general, you separate different campaigns for different age demographics, gender demographics. Then at least when you're said and done with it, you have, again, a way to make your ROI better by just shutting off the ones that didn't work. Because even within that, you'll have a decent discrepancy in the results that you're getting. For that matter, if you did your work here and you paid for your data, it's going to tell you which demographics to single out right away, which industries to single out right away, for the most part. I just want you to know that going in so that in case you don't quite get the results you're looking for, because it's still tough to get results on LinkedIn. The clicks are not cheap. You actually have always a way to improve your result and get to profitability. The only question is how much you're going to have to knock off to get to profitability. Some of you guys with a great offer and you've had a lot of results to show, or a really good salesperson, you're going to hit it right away. And other people, other companies, you're going to have to spend, you got to get rid of 80% of it to get to an ROI that's acceptable. Just know that ahead of time going in. For that matter, case studies. So I have 4 case studies here: CFO outsourcing, drug testing platform, spend management services, pricing optimization services. I want to go into these. If you haven't subscribed to the channel though, you absolutely should. I have the best information you're going to find online about how to make money with ads. Step by step, I'm going to show you the way. And I got this information because I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm for dozens of clients. And I share it with you here for free. Other guys on YouTube, they're not doing that because they spend all their time on their YouTube channel. I have to work 80 hours a week to make this possible. Half of it is just client work, half of it's just the YouTube channel. And for that matter, so if you want to learn from somebody who's actually in the field doing it, which is what you want, then you want to subscribe to this channel. If you're serious, really serious about making millions of dollars a year running ads for your business. Furthermore, check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. As all my written strategies there with screenshots, with documentation on how to do these strategies at work that we use to guarantee results for our clients at our firm. If you have any questions about anything I'm covering here, by the way, you can always leave me a comment below. You also can reach out to me through my Discord group that I've started. You can find a link to that in the description of this video. As is, you can reach out to me through my site at guaranteedppc.com, of which on my site, what I do offer is coaching and consulting, but also full-on done-for-you management services of managing Google ads, Facebook ads, any online ads, of which we also offer a guarantee for your results. That is, if you do not get the results you're looking for that we promise you up front, there's no fee. Not only that, but we also offer templates now. If you're in a market that we've been in already, we can sell you the winning ads, landing pages, all of it that work for your market. And I've got hundreds of these templates. It's an easy way to get results, even if you're not looking to work with an ad management agency like ours outright. As long as you're in a different city or country that our client's in, you can use it for yourself in your own market. Going back to the case study at hand here. So for CFO outsourcing, I talked about this one already in this video earlier, 85 average LTV. So I rounded these to the nearest 5K, by the way. 23 conversions was our average monthly results that we were getting with our LinkedIn sponsor message campaign. Cost per opportunity, $49. So when I say cost per op, that really is just cost per actual meeting that we had. It's not really cost per how many people were in the meeting that were qualified. That's not what this represents. Closing rate on these was 3%, just 3, which sounds really poor or bad. But when you're talking about LinkedIn ads, same thing with like even Facebook ads. It's a numbers game. You can't expect to get the same closing rates as you're going to get on a Google search ad when people are already ready to buy now. Then you're going to get interrupting somebody randomly, especially with the type of offer I talked about there, where you're just paying for the time and getting a high closing rate. Even with a great salesperson, it's still going to be that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% closing rate. I don't care how good you are, needed your solution. 3% is actually, if you got that, it's already really, really good, because you're not going to have to pay that much for an op. Now you have to pay for the gift card as well. So that's going to throw in another $50. So your really cost per op is more like $100 for a meeting. And then 3%, now you're looking at roughly $3,000 for a closing. But when you're talking about an 85K lifetime value, now you're only at roughly a 4 or 5% marketing cost. So it's excellent. In terms of B2B marketing, that's like, you can't ask for possibly anything more than that. That shows you the method, how profitable this method is, literally just paying people to get into a meeting. If you've targeted well enough, you've singled out enough people that fit is just like literally a home run prospect for you to get in front of, it will work like that. You also I have a case study here for a drug testing platform. So with this, literally this company had a platform. If you have to do employee drug testing, it's a pain to call up a drug testing company every single time. So what this company did is they came up with this really cool software that you can order them online. Ultimately, the software just already had partnerships with all these facilities. So you just click, and then it's booked. Instead of having to call up, it just saves them time. So it's not that valuable to the end user itself, but it does save them time. But the good thing is, once they get them onto the system, they're never going to stop using it. And every time they book a test with the local lab there, that's local to them, they're going to make a cut of every single sale. That's how they made their money. That client was worth right around 15K lifetime value between all the future expected purchases that they're going to make, at least the company sizes that we were targeting and wanted. Because one of the great things about doing B2B ads is, instead of doing like content marketing organically and all that crap, is you could just make sure every single person that replies is exactly who you'd want to reply. We can only go after HR managers in this space that are of a company size of at least 50 employees, so that at least we know if we get into a meeting with somebody, it's going to be a whale every single time. Therefore, we're willing to pay to get into a meeting with them. We had 11 conversions a month at an average of $24 cost per op. We had to give our gift card, and that cost extra though, and I brought the cost per op up, but we had a closing rate of 5%. So this was we had a better response rate here than the CFO stuff, but that's because it's essentially a more unique offer in a smaller, tighter market. So therefore, our response is going to be higher. But our lifetime value isn't as high. It's not quite as good in terms of ROI itself. That shows you an example of another market where we could get the pay you proposal method here to work. Spend management. There's companies out there, what they'll do is they'll come in, they'll look at everything you're spending money on at your company, your utilities, employees or staff, your materials, your software that you're using. And what they do is they come in and they'll negotiate better terms, better rates for you, which frankly, if anybody did that to me, I'm going to tell them to go pound sand. But there's a lot of companies out there who are going to cave, that you ask your phone company and say, hey, we're going to be willing to switch if you don't give us a discount. The other company A said they were going to give me the same thing for 25% off. Now I want 10% off, or we're switching. Give it to us or not. And it's really this simple. They could say, go pound sand or yes. Not everybody will say yes. And frankly, you weren't willing to switch. It was a paid gun, empty threat, and sometimes it works. So they literally go and do this across the board to all your vendors, so to say. That's not the only way that they reduce costs, but it's about reducing your costs. I don't really, just as a side take, I don't really recommend doing this as a company by what our client has done, because your vendor relationship, if you do this stuff to them, you're going to lose your trust with the vendor. They're not going to know if you're going to do it to them again. And there's resentment. Just like in an employee, if you said, hey, we're going to cut your pay by 50%. If you want your job, that's fine. But at the end of the day, they're not going to take you as seriously anymore. So yes, this is what private equity companies do and all this. So, but it does get short-term results for sure. Neither here nor there with all that. Spend management company had 45K lifetime value. They actually make money on the amount of savings. So if you're spending 500K a month in expenses, and they are able to save another 100K, they'll take 10 to 20% of that savings for their cut. So they'll get, 10 to 20,000 for their efforts. Different companies do different takes, different cuts. Then there's, of course, setup fees or sign-up fees. They don't tell you about that right away, but it sounds convincing because ultimately you say, okay, these other companies, we've saved them this. We want this small setup fee to make sure we're serious, but unless we deliver, we're not really getting the big payout that we really want. Sounds great on paper, and it will work. Whether your vendors like you after that, we'll see. But 9 conversions a month, cost per op $355. Given that we went with the similar clients method, so that your cost per op is much higher, 13% closing rate on leads. For that matter, ultimately, we're still spending like 5K-ish for a client. Then we're only getting a 45K LTV, but we're still around an 800% ROAS. That's also still really good. So that's a market where we were able to make the similar clients method work. And then pricing optimization services. So there's firms out there which will help you optimize what you're charging for your prices. And this is really getting interesting because there's markets out there like fast food where they'll switch all the pricing to LCD screens on the menus and everything. And they'll use algorithms to find the absolute best price for the product that they're selling. But more so what this company did was it was for manufacturers, figuring out the best price to charge for the parts and components that they sold, given that it would take somebody forever to figure this out, especially if you had to change the price 10 times, find out its effect on the sales for every price change. But they would do this. The reason why you hire them instead of an employee to do it is because you have outside data showing what other similar companies are doing, what gets results there, and apply it in your situation so you have less testing and waste that's going to go through in the process of figuring it all out. Same thing with our own agency. Why you hire a PPC agency, it's not we're doing work for you. It's We've worked for 50 other local service companies already, and we already know what you need to do before we even start, and there's no testing involved. It's just you're executing. 3 conversions a month. I know it's a ridiculous small amount, but lifetime value is huge, and we were targeting very specific companies, at least at this stage. Over time, the client's going to get into more industries, but 412 cost per op and a closing rate of 21%. So smaller audience, higher response rates, higher ROI. Those kind of go over the numbers I wanted to go over here. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. LinkedIn sponsored messages, if you're going to go with it, I recommend either one of these two. I know there's going to be other effective ways, but I see a lot of people doing this totally wrong. Hey, we offer SEO services. Would you like to talk to us about rankings? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody trusts you, and they shouldn't trust you. What do you have that they can't go to Google and get in 2 seconds? You've got to really take this into consideration when trying to realize if people are going to respond or not. If you're not going to come to me and I can't say, this is why you should respond and why now, really respond, you're already wasting your money and you're not going to get a return on your campaign. It's not a channel that you operate like it's a Google search ad where it's like, hey, in that case, you do want to be direct. In this case, going direct isn't going to work. How can you dangle this really shiny little object here that they absolutely cannot resist? Then you can get results because you get the response rate you want. And given that the lower your response rate is, the worse your ROI is. Really what you got to do is find out a way to get them to respond. Well, after responding, you're still going to have somebody that's not going to be like, holy shit, you said you were going to do this and I got this, and you like baited and switched me. Even though that goes on to a little bit of some degree with some people and it still works. That's what you got to figure out. And you can just go with my method or your own. So with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.